Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first YouTube live stream of Money Monday. And hopefully it's going to be working. Hopefully it's live streaming right now. I'm going to check here. It looks like it has started. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for checking out the live stream today. I've been meaning to do a Money Monday episode now for holy cow. It's been weeks, and I've got a whole bunch of topics. I actually taught a class at Shutterfest and had a bunch of great questions that I wish I could have, recorded and streamed because there was just a great crowd and great questions. But I figured, you know what? Instead of recording some like prepackaged video today, I figured let's try this YouTube live thing. Let's see how it works out, talking directly to you. Let's see who's out there and what kind of questions you guys have. So with that being said, let's see. It looks like there's some people coming through on the chat here. Let me know in the comment section if you guys can hear me, because I do want to make sure before we get too far into the live stream that you guys are actually able to hear me. So let me know in the comment section if you guys are able to hear. And let's see. Got a couple people coming through. So I see, let's see, Irk Till. Hey, how's it going? Rick, how are you? All is well in Brooklyn. Very nice. Ivan, hello from North Carolina. I'm actually going to North Carolina next week. It'll be fun. Call me Vinny. How's it going? I think you had a question on Twitter. I'm going to get to that today. Let's see. DLAV. Let's see. I'm going to guess LeVar. He says, what's up? I have a question about Sony. All their cameras have all these great specs, but colors look really dull. Why? Canon shooter myself. Yeah, I'll cover some non-business related questions too in the meantime. While I'm waiting for everybody to log into this live stream, let me kind of set the framework for what this live stream is going to be about. We're going to be talking about business, about sales, about marketing, essentially the stuff that hopefully will get you paid so that you guys can buy more equipment and, just kind of provide for your families and to hopefully make a career out of this like crazy business of photography. So those are the questions that I really want to cover. So covering things in regards to pricing and how you can market your business and just any challenges that you guys are having, any struggles that you're having with just getting a photography business up and running. Those are the questions that I really want to capture today. But, if you have other non-business related questions, I'll try to cover those as well. So if you can, let me know in the comment section where you guys are watching from, because I always like to know where everybody is at. So to go back and answer that question, so he was asking, why do the colors look really dull? So I guess my question to you would be, what are you shooting with? Are you shooting in JPEG? Are you shooting in RAW? I shoot in RAW, and I expect my RAW photos to have dull colors because the color is something that I adjust and I tweak in post-processing. So if you're shooting JPEG, your JPEGs shouldn't look very dull. I mean, they have all the adjustments and everything made to it. But if you're shooting RAW, whether you're shooting in Canon, Nikon, Sony, doesn't matter, you should be getting a fairly flat, fairly boring, fairly dull image. And it's actually one of the reasons why I kind of try to stray away from sharing my RAW photos online, because people who are newer, who are just starting out, they see it and they're like, oh, those colors look terrible. And it's like, well, it's a RAW photo. RAW photos aren't supposed to look great. So yeah, with that being said, let me know in the comment section here, what camera are you using? Are you shooting RAW? Are you shooting JPEG? That might help me to narrow it down a little bit here. So let's see. Looks like everybody can hear me loud and clear, which is great. Alex, hi from England, UK. Sound is good. Beautiful. Fantastic. Let's see. Craig is in Connecticut. Irk was asking what part of North Carolina. I'm going to be visiting Raleigh, North Carolina. It took me a second. It's been a crazy week. Let's see. Arvin, love from India. Wow, that's crazy. People in India watching. This is great. Welcome to the stream. Let's see. We've got Ivan in Burlington, Sweden for LeVar, Christine in Rochester, New York, Mac in Maryland. How's it going, everybody? Got a lot of stuff coming through here. Let's see, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, very cool. Melvin Jackson, what's up from Queens, New York in the house. Let's see, Adrian says, I shoot RAW, Nikon, and Sony. Nice. I shoot RAW too. That's pretty much all I do, unless I'm doing an event or something where I have to turn over photos really quick, and then I'll do RAW and JPEG, but pretty much always shooting RAW. Let's see, Omar, what's up from the Bronx? Man, we got a lot of New York folks in the house. This is pretty killer. Let's see, Adrian, Orlando, Florida, my old stomping grounds. Where in Orlando, Florida are you at? I used to be in Altamont Springs, in that area before I moved over here to Jersey. Let's see, Oreo says, hi, CPass Photos, New Jersey. We got another New Jerseyan in the house. Welcome. Max says, is your Raleigh, North Carolina visit a workshop? No, it's actually kind of like a family/business trip, doing a meeting with a sponsor while I'm there. So trying to take a little bit of time off because it's been kind of crazy. February and March, pretty much every month, I've been traveling anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks doing conferences and workshops and things like that. So it's been pretty crazy. So I just need a little bit of time off, you know? So let's see. Jess says, shooting RAW with Canon. Very cool. Rick says, as we speak, I just started to advertise with Vistaprint. They said the ad will be on 100 sites. Where would you suggest I advertise and how to go about that? Very good question, Rick. So I talk about this in my workshops quite a bit, but I kind of separate marketing into two categories, right? You have your passive marketing and you have your active marketing. So when I say passive marketing, I'm talking about things that you have to do, right? So don't get me wrong when I say passive marketing, because the way I'm going to say this, you're going to be like, oh, Miguel sounds like he doesn't like it, but it's not that. What I tend to see is a lot of creatives tend to do a lot of passive marketing where they'll do stuff like updating their website, doing a Google AdWords campaign, doing a Facebook ad, in this case, doing advertising with Vistaprint. These are all what I would call passive marketing, where you create this thing, whether it be an advertisement, whether it be a Facebook post or a social media post, and then you just kind of like sit and wait and hope and pray that somebody gets in touch with you to hire you for your services. And so it is one way of doing things, and I'm not going to like bash it. It is something that you have to do. However, active marketing is something that I've seen gets the most traction because you get in front of people. And the idea behind active marketing is to try to do like they did in the old days, where you actually engage with people face to face or voice to voice if it's going to be on the phone. But trying to let people get a little more of a feel for who you are as a person, in a face to face type of capacity. So, for example, for me, when I moved to New Jersey, headshots and portraits is like my bread and butter. And so what I ended up doing was I went to meetup.com. I found local meetups where young professionals would meet up, where just professionals in general would meet up. And I would go to these networking events. And these are the people that I want to hire me for my headshot services. So what better way, rather than just putting out an advertisement and then hoping and praying that they'll call me, rather than doing that, I go to these events. I meet these people face to face. I shake hands. I kiss babies. Do the whole getting out there and just meeting people face to face and letting them know that you are a human being and these are the services that you provide. And oftentimes it's kind of funny because I would go to these events and I would talk to these people, and they would hire me before they even looked at my work, just because they liked the interaction that they had with me in person. So you would be very surprised how many people, if you went out and did more active marketing to support your passive marketing efforts as well, that you'd be able to develop a lot more word of mouth business. Because what happens is you'll go to these events, you'll talk to these people, and they'll turn around and say, well, I don't really have a need for that, but I work in an office where, there's like 15 people working there. Maybe we could work something out to where we can get a good deal and, maybe have you do headshots for the office. So there's a lot of opportunities, and you can uncover those if you go to networking events, to meetup groups, and they're happening everywhere. I don't care how small your town is. if you're watching right now and you're in a small town, there's going to be some meetups. If there's people, unless you're like the sole resident of your town, you might have a problem there, right? So you might want to go and check outside of your town, but go to meetup.com, find out where these people are meeting, go to those events, dress nice, look nice. The first few times that you go, it's going to suck because, if you're not kind of the extrovert type, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time talking to people and just kind of feeling comfortable. But the more that you do it, the more confident you'll get, the more you'll be able to develop a strategy to be able to hopefully be able to make money. So kind of long-winded, wasn't really specific about Vistaprint, but I kind of feel the same whether it's about that or just any type of like online marketing posts, things like that. They're great, use them, but don't just do that and sit back and then say, oh man, I marketed it, it didn't work out. Or like I put this like awesome website together. It took me a month to do it and I'm not getting any business or I'm not getting any hits. The hits are they're going to come from you actually going out and talking to people and trying to get them to visit those things. So hopefully that helps. I'm going to scroll through here. Let's see. So Adrian's in College Park. Very cool. I know College Park. Been there many times. Good place. Vasily, hey from rainy Seattle. Yeah, man. It's rainy here in New Jersey too. So, it was really funny. The very first time I went to Seattle, everybody said it was super rainy. I was there for 3 days and it was like gorgeous, like blue skies. You could see, the mountains and everything else. And I'm like, man, they said this place was going to be all gray and gloomy and it was beautiful. And then I went in November 2016 for Creative Live and it was rainy and gloomy and really gross outside. So I got to see Seattle in all of its glory, but I love it out there. Very cool. Christian, hi from Trinidad and Tobago. Very awesome. Man, I'm telling you, it's so cool. We have India, we have Sweden, we've got some different places in the US, now Trinidad and Tobago. Irk says, Raleigh, would love to meet up if you're free. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to be spending some time with family, but who knows? I'll probably post online if I end up doing any type of meetups while I'm there. Let's see. LeVar, one thing I'm going to love after going mirrorless is to see the exposure before you take the shot. I shoot 60 and RAW, of course. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the game changer for me with, shooting with a mirrorless camera. Has just been that you could actually see the exposure before you actually shoot. Not only that, but because you have the electronic viewfinder, I have it set to a 2-second preview of my last shot. So I'll take a photograph and it just pops up on my viewfinder. I can see the photo I just took. And so I don't have to chimp as often. And that was something that was really cool because what I would end up doing is I'll be looking through the electronic viewfinder. I'll be talking to the person that I'm photographing and I'm looking at the photo and maybe the hair was like a certain type of way and I want to change that. So I'll say, oh, could you take the hair on this side and just kind of flip it over your shoulder? And meanwhile, I'm holding the camera up to my face the whole time and just kind of scanning the photo to make sure that I got the shot in focus, that the lighting looks good, that my settings were correct. And that's something that before I would have to look down at the camera and kind of disengage with my model or with my subject. So that's kind of cool. That's something that I really enjoy. So we got Larian from Romania. Very cool. Let's see. Adrian says, get weird SSL errors when trying your website. Yeah, GoDaddy is working on that. They absolutely suck. I switched over my website from like a regular server hosting package thing to this like managed WordPress service that GoDaddy offered. And ever since then, like there's malware, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that took over the website. They were supposed to have fixed it. I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. If you're on a Chrome browser, you shouldn't be getting any type of errors, but I've heard now from a couple people that the website is getting some weird errors. So I apologize for that. It should be getting fixed relatively quickly. Veronica, hi from Brooklyn, was at Shutterfest and heard you and Jeff Rojas speak in the after-hour session. Thanks for joining us. Can you speak more of how to market yourself to commercial clients when you're just starting out? I got the entire value concept Jeff was driving, but can you provide more tactical advice? Yeah, so How to market yourself to commercial clients when you're starting out. I think there's a couple of things that you have to do ahead of time before you do this. First things first being that you've developed a portfolio that is attractive to commercial clients. So, when you build your portfolio, you have to look and kind of think who is willing to pay for these types of images, right? There's a lot of times where people just take random snapshots, random portraits. They're not cohesive. Maybe you have a picture of a person and then, a landscape and then a picture of a product, and it's like all over the place. And then they'll try to approach a company or an organization and say, yeah, I want to get this commercial work with you. And they go to your website and they're just like, I don't even know what you do. So really important that you make sure that you have a portfolio that appeals to commercial clients. So that's first and foremost. Now, in terms of the actual nitty gritty of like going out and finding these types of clients, you know, you have to look and see who are the types of companies that would buy your type of work. So it's going to depend on what you do. If you're a product photographer, for example, you're going to have to go and start hitting phones and start knocking on doors and just reaching out to these organizations and letting them know who you are, and hopefully let them know that you're able to capture the type of work that that they would require for their business to run. So it's very simple, and it's kind of odd to me because I've come from different sales backgrounds. I've sold cars, I've sold real estate, I've sold technology. Um, I've sold different types of services in the past, and I've always found it to be the same. Approaching a commercial client is actually quite a bit easier because I know where they are, right? I can go on LinkedIn, for example, which is a great social media site for you to be a part of. If you're trying to go after commercial clients, sometimes you can find great contacts through LinkedIn and send them messages directly and say, hey, this is who I am. My name is Veronica. I'm a fill in the blank photographer. I specialize in this type of work. I would love the opportunity to talk to you to see if maybe we could collaborate on a project in the future. And you'd be very, very surprised. There are people that they have people that they've worked with that maybe they're not happy. Maybe they dropped the ball one day and they weren't happy with the service. And it provides you with an opportunity to get in the door and to talk to these people and, hopefully be able to get some business out of them. So when it comes to approaching commercial clients, like I say, the big thing is make sure that you have the portfolio to support whatever it is that you're trying to go after. And then literally just start making a hit list. Go through and figure out whether it's through the web or whatever means that you find would work best for you. But just try to find companies that you want to approach and that you want to talk to, and then just reach out to them, whether it's through phone, whether it's through email, or all of the above. I think a lot of times people they're very scared to try to get on the phone, or they're scared to go to like a place of business and just try to meet someone face to face. It's much easier for you to just try to reach out to people. And if you can't get them on the phone, send them an email. If you can't get them on the phone or email, send them something in the mail. Multiple different points of contact until you finally get the person that you need to talk to. So going to networking events, like I said, for the first question is really great way to do it. If you go to a professional meetup, especially if you live in the city, you said you're in Brooklyn. So you live like right next to or right in like one of the biggest commercial heavy locations in the world. There's meetups all over the place. So the key is for you to get in front of those people that either are the decision makers or are people that work or might know who the decision maker is at their particular company. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Going through some questions here. So Arvind, he says, just having confusion. I have enough money to buy an A7R3, but should I still go buy an A7 III with that money and buy some decent lens, or should I get an R3? I'm into fashion and product photography. So that's a really good question. I think the answer is it just depends. I think if I'm just going off of my gut feeling, I would say go with an A7 III with like a really good piece of glass. However, it just really depends on your budget. I have both cameras. I just got my A7 III in the mail on Friday. So, but I have been shooting with it for a while. I was at the launch event when Sony announced it in Vegas. I got to take it home with me. I recorded a couple of Adorama TV episodes with it. Um, and then I did a photo shoot, which I hopefully will have the video up pretty soon. But I think when it comes to the images, they look great off of either camera. I feel perfectly fine shooting fashion products, headshots with either of the two cameras. I think the glass is what's going to be more important. So, if you're having to buy an A7R III and then you don't have money to get good glass, um, I would say you probably should get better glass and buy an A7 III, you know, or just wait until you have the money, get the A7R III, and get good glass. Essentially, you're not going to be unhappy with either choice. It's just going to be a matter of like how patient are you. If you only have a certain amount of money right now and you basically have to like get a camera body and a lens, and the budget doesn't extend for you to get an R3 with a good piece of glass, dude, get the A7 III. You're going to be more than happy with that. It's a fantastic camera. Let's see. D. Lavar says, loving this content already. Thank you so much. Christine says, great advice on getting out and meet other creatives in a meetup, etc. Thank you. This is something I talk about quite often in my lectures and my workshops, and it really has been the key to my success personally as a business person, not just as a photographer, but as a business person. Every company that I've ever worked for, I found some level of success in sales because I have no problem going to meetups and, making a fool of myself, talking to people and trying to just figure out and see what they're into and somehow spinning that into my services and what I'm into and just having an honest, authentic conversation with them. You'll be really surprised how well it works. Let's see. I Laugh for You One says, trying to move to Sony. I usually shoot portrait, event, and landscape. After spending $2,000 on body, what's a less expensive lens I should start with before I save enough to buy a 24-70 G Master? So you shoot portrait, event, and landscape. Yeah, 24 to 70 G Master would be a beast. I would say maybe go with something like a 35 mil 2.8 would be a pretty good option. You could definitely do some portrait stuff. You could do landscapes. You could do events. Um, I mean, I've tried the 24 to 70 f4. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it is at a lower cost. So I would say that could also be an option, but it's not the sharpest lens. It doesn't have the best color. Personally, it's probably my least favorite lens, but if you're trying to save up, that would be a really great option to use. So Rick says, I leave my cards at beauty shops and churches, but I start doing the meetup. Yeah, that's great too. But like I say, all of those things are passive marketing, right? Because you leave the card and then you just sit and wait, and you're hoping that someone's going to email you, or you hope that somebody's going to call you. It's all very passive, as opposed to if you go to the beauty shop, you speak to the owner, you try to get the business with them directly, or maybe they have some kind of event that's happening at their store and you say, hey, I would like to be a part of this event. Or maybe you can have like a table there with your work. That's more active. It's getting in front of people so that they can see who you are, see your personality, see just everything about you. That photography is a very personal thing. And I think a lot of creatives have a hard time with that. They have a hard time understanding the fact that it's very much a like a personal thing. They have to see you, they have to talk to you, they have to feel good about who you are and the services that you provide. And you can only get so much of that through like an electronic means, whether it be through a website or through Facebook or whatever, or through a business card or through a flyer that you leave. You know, Photography is a very personal thing. And if I have to spend any amount of time with somebody, I'd rather spend some time with somebody that I actually like and that I think is friendly or funny or whatever. And I can't get that off of a card that somebody left on a table. So trust me, the more that you can get in front of people, the better it's going to be. Even if you can't do business with them directly, sometimes they will recommend you to people that they know that, hopefully can give you some business. So let's see. Hover says, hey, from sunny Nebraska, ignore the 3 inches of snow on the ground. I'm lucky, man. So that's pretty awesome. I haven't been to Nebraska. I'm hoping that this year I'll try to figure out a way to get out there. But yeah, luckily we don't have snow, but we do have a lot of fog today. It was really scary. Let's see. I laugh for you going to Seattle too. Very cool. Hussein, hello, Miguel, big fan. Thank you. Thank you so much for the support. I laugh for you says eye autofocus would be awesome, especially shooting kids. It definitely would. Eye autofocus is probably one of the best advancements for portrait photography that has come through in forever. I did a class at Shutterfest, and it was kind of funny. It was talking about stunning portraits or shooting stunning portraits on location. And so I was judging at Shutterfest a couple days prior to teaching this class. And I would say 60%, I mean, and I'm making these numbers up, it felt like it was a lot higher, but about 60% of the photos that were submitted to the competition were either not sharp or just plain straight out of focus, like completely out of focus. And so what I ended up doing for my class is I kind of changed my material. And I said, if I could just teach you basically one big thing when it comes to shooting portraits, which is getting the eyes sharp and in focus, I think that everything that you do from here on out is going to be great, and you're going to have a much better chance of getting great shots. And so what I found to be really funny is all of the DSLR shooters, there was a group of about 75 photographers. I taught them my method for focusing. And it was amazing to me that the people that were shooting with DSLRs of various brands were the ones having the hardest time getting the eyes in focus because there were so few focus points. And so, I would tell them, don't focus and recompose, compose it in the camera, crop it the way you want it to be, move your focus point to the nearest eye, push halfway down to lock in that focus and take it. But because with mirrorless cameras, you have basically the entire sensor that you can move that focus point around, made it so easy. Then, of course, with eye autofocus, it doesn't matter where they are. It just automatically focuses on the eye. But a lot of the DSLR shooters were having a really hard time with that. So we fixed some of the issues were actually calibration issues with the body and lens. But that's one of the big reasons I could never go back to DSLR just because of that. Danny says, hi from Las Vegas. I've been doing test shoots with agencies. I see that they like flat light. Is that the commercial look? Personally, I don't like it. So I don't know that it's necessarily a commercial look. I mean, they definitely like stuff that is well lit. So I would say that's more of the commercial look, if you want to call it that, is basically having images that have good light. So it doesn't have to be flat, but they tend to want to see people's faces lit pretty well. So none of the really dark, dramatic stuff. It can work, but yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily flat light. I would just say good light. And one of the things I would also tell you, go to IMDb and take a look and see what some of the either famous or up and coming actors, what they have for their headshots on IMDb. I did some research when I moved into this market because that's a market that I try to market to is actors, actresses, things of that nature. And so just look at some of the headshots that they have. You'll be really, really surprised. You'll get kind of a feel for what you start to see more often than not. So Matt says, starting a business in photography and just shot my first paid shoot, and your videos helped a lot. Thanks, real world advice to help avoid some road bumps. My pleasure. I'm so happy that you're out there, and I'm happy to hear that the information is helping you out. I'm going to jump over to Twitter really quickly. I'll come back to the questions here on YouTube in a sec, because Vincent, who is probably still on the stream, he had asked 3 questions. I'm going to try to knock these out here. So he says, how do you price yourself in different types of photography jobs? For example, portraits versus real estate. Second question was the best way to market yourself in an oversaturated market. And third was, what's your method of making sure clients come back to you? So let's talk about the first question, which is how do you price yourself for different types of photography? So there's a big difference between shooting portraits and shooting real estate. They both command a very different price point in the market. So how I would price it is going to depend on my market. And so typically what I do is I look to see who are the relevant players in my market for whatever, whether it's headshots, portraits, real estate photos, maternity, family portraits, whatever the genre is. Figure out who the big players are in your market, in your local market. Take a look and see what they are offering in terms of their packages, in terms of their pricing. You're doing what I call market research, right? So you're going out there, you're trying to figure out what is it that people are offering in your local market. The goal is not to try to copy them. The goal is not to try to copy their pricing, but it's to give you an idea when you look at the work and you see a photographer in your local market that's not like their work isn't that good. You can see what that costs versus somebody who does really good work in your local market and what they would charge. And so the goal would be to figure out from there, okay, what is my differentiating factor? Like, is it the quality of my work? Is it my personal brand? Maybe you've developed a name for yourself in your local market. Maybe it's just the way that you market. What is your differentiator? And so when you figure out what that is, then you can figure out what your pricing needs to be. So I would say pick a price that falls somewhere in that range that you're seeing in your local market, and then do it for a couple months. I would say 3 to 6 months. If you're getting a lot of business, great. Maybe you need to raise your prices. If you're not getting a lot of business, maybe you priced it too high, or maybe you're not offering enough value for the prices that you're asking people to pay for your work. So that's essentially how I would kind of approach pricing for any genre, whether it's for real estate photos, whether it's for portraits. You need to figure out where you stand in your local market, and you need to figure out how you can differentiate before you could even figure out what to price things at. Second question was best way to market yourself in an oversaturated market. Again, best way is always that meeting people face to face. People will do business with people that they like, and you have a better opportunity of convincing them that you're likable if you meet them in person. So best way to do it in an oversaturated market, they're not doing it. Chances are if they're creatives, like most of us that are watching this live stream, they're probably not doing this. So that's the way I would do it. And then what's your method of making sure clients come back to you? Treating everyone with respect, treating everyone, giving everyone a great experience when they work with me. So, making sure that I answer emails in a timely fashion, making sure that I set expectations, making sure that I make them feel good about the process of having their photo taken. You'll be surprised. I work with people not just that it's their first time being photographed, but I work with people that are professional models, professional actors and singers that might have photos taken of themselves all the time. And it's always my goal to have the best interactions and the best experience with them so that when they leave, they feel good about spending time with me and having had those photos taken. So that's how I get clients to come back. I treat them with respect. I let them know what the expectations are. And I try to, basically under promise and over deliver, and that's another thing that's really helped me out quite a bit. So let's go back to the questions on YouTube. Matt says, starting a business in photography and just shot my first paid shoot. Oh, yeah, I read that one already. Let's see. Going through. Wow, there's a lot of questions on the stream here. Let's see. Sean says, hey, Miguel, love your work, man. Shouting you out from Barbados. Awesome. Thank you. We met briefly at Photo Plus last year. Very cool. Nice to see you out there. Are you going to Photo Plus again this year? That's the question. Rick says, just got my A7 III. We'll be doing my next wedding with the 24 millimeter Zeiss, 55 Zeiss, Sony 85, and Sony 24-105. That is killer. Make sure you share those photos in my group on Facebook. If you guys are not a member, go to Facebook if you're a member there. Go into the search, put Improve Your Photography, and you'll see my Facebook group. It's Improve Your Photography with Miguel Quiles. Share your photos when you get around to doing that because I would love to see it. Fantasy Fitness, thanks for choosing my image for the Sony Portraits page, my son with the teddy bear. That was my first shoot or first shot with the A7 III coming from Canon. Dude, that was a fantastic photo. If you guys are wondering what he's talking about, I host or I run the Sony Portraits Instagram page. So if you go on Instagram, definitely follow the page. It's at Sony Portraits, and we feature myself and Quay, who runs Sony Images. We feature portraits that have been shot on Sony cameras. His picture I selected yesterday for a feature because it was a beautiful photo. So congrats, welcome from Canon to the A7 III. Hopefully you're enjoying the camera, and who knows, maybe I'll get to feature some of your images again in the future. Let's see, D. Lavar, how important is high-speed sync for working professionally and making money doing photography? I'll take a drink here before I answer that. So he's asking how important is it? It's not important at all, like not in the slightest. For the longest time, I would say the majority of the work that I do, I don't shoot with high speed sync. I talked about this at Shutterfest, and it's going to be a little bit controversial. You might hate me after I say this, but part of using high speed sync is for you to be able to shoot at a wider aperture. So you see people using high speed sync in outdoor situations where they want to shoot at an f1.4 and they want to blur the background. That's all good and fine. It provides a certain type of look that is marketable. However, in my personal opinion, so don't kill me, but in my personal opinion, I feel that high speed sync photos or photos shot at like a wide open aperture in general tend to be kind of like a cheap look. And so what do I mean by that? If you look at a lot of the like high-end portraits, or you look at a lot of the high-end fashion work and commercial work, you're not going to see as much, right? You will see some, but you're not going to see as many images that are being shot wide open on any lens. You're not going to see a lot of shots that are being done with high-speed sync. I feel like, there's this part of photography where we, as instructors or as influencers or whatever you want to call these people, they show this style, and it's always about shooting wide open, and that's why you spend this big money to get these lenses that shoot at f1.4 and f1.2. And I'm not saying don't use those settings. I'm just saying you have a whole range of settings on your aperture there. You can go from f1.4 up to as high as sometimes f30 something. Try it out, develop a portfolio of images at various apertures. Don't be that photographer. And there's a lot of them that are out there, especially on YouTube, many of which who I've talked to. Had to clear my throat there. So a lot of which I've talked to personally, and I'm like, listen, high speed sync is all good and dandy. It looks fine, but got to mix it up, man. You can't have an entire portfolio of all high speed sync stuff. There's going to be some people that like it's too easy to compete with. They get an off-camera flash, they get an Octa, or they get an umbrella, put it at 45 degrees to the right or left, and boom, they've replicated your style. And so that's where I would tell people, don't get locked into like one way of shooting. Shoot a lot of different things. Shoot high speed sync, shoot high aperture, shoot everything. I don't know. That's a rant for a different day. Craig says your local chamber of commerce has business meetings also. Absolutely. I've actually, if I was here a little bit more and I wasn't traveling so much, I probably would join my local chamber. It is a fantastic resource for you to be able to meet up with people because they have meetings all the time, and they do sometimes different. They do like not mixers, but kind of like almost like speed dating for business people, where they'll like you'll sit down at a table and you get to talk to somebody for a minute, and then you switch and go to another table. I forgot what they call it, but it's essentially like a business version of speed dating. It's very cool. So your local chamber of commerce is a great resource. Antisocial Pictures says, do you do email blasts? If yes, have they been fruitful? I haven't done as many email blasts as I probably should. I don't find them to be fruitful in and of themselves, but they are definitely a way to just continue to remind people that you exist, that you're out there, that you have different things going on. But it could depend on your market. So I would never tell somebody don't do email blast. I would just say that it's going to vary depending on who the person is and kind of like what they do. So definitely use them, but don't just do email blasts and then be disappointed if you don't get business from it. You still have to go out there and do all of the active marketing stuff that I talked about at the beginning of this video. Good question though. Stefan says glass and lighting. Yes. Yes, indeed. Glass and lighting is very important. I would say those are a little bit more important than the body that you use, the system that you use, any of that stuff. Adrian says that's good information. I am trying to break into photography and portrait work. Curious about when and how to charge. So the question of when to charge, whenever you can deliver a consistent product. That's kind of my threshold for when I would start to charge. It doesn't have to be that you're delivering a quality work in order to start charging. Here's where I'm coming from with that. Some of us go to fast food restaurants and we buy hamburgers that are not A quality, right? They look like somebody stepped on them and then just wrapped them up and gave it to us. And we'll happily pay $1 for that, right? So I would consider fast food to be like D level quality, right? But they consistently deliver that quality. And so we know when we go to a fast food joint, we know what to expect, right? We're not surprised when we get a hamburger or a sandwich that looks like it got kicked around the room before they wrapped it up. With photography, with business, it's the same thing, right? So God forbid you're shooting images that look like they got kicked around the room and then wrapped up. But if you're delivering consistent quality, if somebody goes to your website and they see an image, and regardless of whether it's in focus or the retouching is bad or whatever, as long as there's a level of consistency where the customer says, hey, if I pay you, because I like your photo on your website, if I pay you, can you do this with me? As long as you can deliver that same level of consistency, I would say you're ready to start charging for your work. What you don't want to do is not have control of the fundamentals of your photography to where you get lucky one day and you take this beautiful photo. Maybe you work with a team that gave you this great concept, and then you photograph that concept and you got really lucky and you took a really stunning shot, and then they tell you have a client that comes to you and says, hey, I want to work with you. I was really inspired by this photo that you took. Could you do something like that with me? You have to be able to deliver. It's not that you got lucky that one day and then you give them a really sloppy photo. You have to be consistent with your work. And that is when you could start charging. In terms of how to charge, again, go back to the beginning of this video, but how to charge would be doing some market research, finding out who your local competition is, figure out how to differentiate your work, your pricing, your packages, your value proposition, how to compare that or how to make it different from the people that are in your local market, and then you price accordingly. Excellent question. Let's see, Ryan from Haiti. How's it going? He says, looking forward to seeing you at ABC Miami next month. Thank you for inspiring. That is awesome. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you as well. If you guys are watching the live stream, I am going to be doing a 2-day class. One is a studio photography class. One is on location in Miami with ABC. So definitely check that out. I'll have that posted on my website once GoDaddy figures out how to fix it. Let's see. Hover says, question, I do real estate photography, indoor, outdoor drone. How do I figure out pricing for commercial customers as opposed to real estate sales? So commercial pricing can be kind of challenging in terms of kind of like how you price the work. For one, it's usually priced quite a bit higher. But then you have to ask additional questions as opposed to what you would do with like a realtor, because a realtor would basically take that image and they use it for that one sale. And pretty much after they sell the house, those images are kind of dead to them, right? But for a commercial client, it's very different because when you take that image, they use it in perpetuity. They use it on the web. They use it for billboards. They use it for a variety of different things. So typically, when you're doing commercial work for real estate or anything of that nature, you're doing it as a license, right? And we're starting to get more comfortable with licensing because we use like Photoshop and Lightroom, and that's a licensed product where you pay every month. They give you access to be able to use the product. Images are very much the same way, except you're not doing it on a monthly basis. I mean, you can, but typically you'd license the image to them to be able to use it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And they can only use it in a specific type of way. Depending on how they choose to use it, whether it be in print, web, or some other fashion, you price it accordingly. So I always tell people, try to, again, do research, figure out and see what other competitors in your area are charging for those types of things. Figure out how to differentiate yourself and kind of price it accordingly from there. It's going to depend on your market. It depends on so many different variables. It's probably the hardest question to answer is when it comes to commercial work, because honestly, a lot of it is trial and error. When I started doing commercial work, I threw prices out there that I thought were like astronomical, and they were like, okay, that's great. I'm like, well, shoot, how is it that I'm throwing out these crazy numbers? And people are like, yeah, I'll go with that. And I started to realize that what I thought was crazy was not crazy. My competitors were actually charging a lot more for the type of work that I was offering. And so I had to keep adjusting and keep adjusting. So the key is be flexible. Every corporate client or every commercial client, there's not a set rate for anything. Everything is custom made and custom tailored for what they need, for how they're going to use the images. So hopefully that helps. Sean says, agreed, get the glass in A7 III. Yeah, that's definitely my recommendation from earlier. Michelle, how's it going? She says, hey, Miguel, 12 to 24 or 16 to 35 G Master, landscapes and environment portraits, or extreme seniors. I don't think there's too much of a competition there. 16 to 35 G Master is a beast of a lens. I've got both. The 12 to 24 is pretty cool. I would say the 16 to 35 is just a general purpose, all around, like one and done type of lens. Being able to shoot landscapes and portraits and everything, and do it with beautiful color and beautiful sharpness. I don't think there's too much of a competition there. 16 to 35 for sure. Although 12 to 24, it's kind of like a niche, very clutch lens to use in certain situations, which is why I own both. But I use the 16 to 35 a lot more for the stuff that you're asking about. Let's see. Gabriel Ortiz says, do you still think in today's social media world, such as Instagram, branding can still be effective? I feel Instagram dictates various short-term trends, which makes individual styles suffer somewhat. Dude, that is a great question. I would tell you that branding is definitely still effective. I would tell you that Instagram doesn't dictate any of it. You have to play the game, though. It's not just Instagram. It's Facebook. It's Twitter. It's YouTube. It's every social media platform, Snapchat, that will gain you attention from the people that you hope to sell your products and services to. So I think your personal brand can't exist outside of these social media platforms. People spend an inordinate amount of time on social media. And if you're not there, if you're not on Instagram, if you're not consistently sharing and publishing your work, there's no way for people to know who you are and what you do. So I don't think that it dictates short-term trends unless you use it in a short-term fashion, if that makes sense. You have to use social media every single day. You have to consistently put out quality work. You have to consistently talk to people and engage with people on social media if you're going to build a personal brand that's effective, that's far-reaching. If you're not doing that, you're going to have a hard time. There's going to be people out there that they may not be as talented as you are, but are just really good at social media that are going to have more success than you will, if you're not doing this. So definitely, I would say branding can still be effective, and it's going to be effective if you utilize social media properly. Matter of fact, you're watching me right now probably because of social media, right? If I wasn't on YouTube, if I wasn't on all the social media platforms that I've been on over the last few years, this channel would probably have like one person watching right now, be like my mom or something. So, you know, social media is very important. Let's see. Kevin says, question, I'm still working my full-time job during the week, but just landed a little studio space. What are your thoughts about marketing for someone that can only do business on the weekends? So, um, first things first. So, if you have to work a full-time job to be able to support your ability to work on the weekends, that's totally fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Having the studio space on the weekends is great. When it comes to marketing, the cool thing about it is that you're a sole proprietor, right? You can work when you feel like working. If your hours are only on the weekend, I wouldn't tell people that. Like, I wouldn't market and say I'm only available on weekends. I would just market myself as somebody who's just plain available at any time. Um, and then when they reach out to me and I start to talk to them, there's going to be some people that are like, no, the opportunity is like a Tuesday night, and maybe you're working Tuesday night, so you can't do it. But at least you have that conversation, because maybe down the road, maybe they turn around and they're like, yeah, I have something on the weekend and it's something you could do. So don't ever say like I can only work on the weekend. But if that's the reality, just make sure that you're talking to people and let them know, hey, I've only got Saturday from like this time to this time open, and I've got Sunday from this time to this time open. Do any of those dates work for you? And they're like, no, because the event is like during the week. Yeah, unfortunately, those dates are already booked. Um, but I would love the opportunity to work with you in the future. If you have any other events, definitely reach out to me. That's the way I would approach that. So Nicholas says, I feel that the 24 to 70 2.8 was a waste of money. The lens is sharp, but pictures feel raw and lack some personality compared to primes. It is also too heavy and too expensive, but I love the 85 1.8. I think that's like the age old battle, man. People either love the look of a zoom and they don't see the difference between like a zoom lens and a prime lens, or they just love primes and like they don't want to use a zoom lens because it never looks like a prime. 24 to 70 doesn't look like a prime lens. The only zoom lens that I've ever used that I would say borders on being like prime quality would be the Sony, the 70 to 200 G Master lens. Um, every time I shoot with that lens, I'm always just exceedingly surprised at how sharp the images come out, to the point to where I'm like, I would have thought it was shot with a prime lens. Um, but primes always look better. But sometimes the situation calls for having some flexibility. So if you're shooting an event, maybe if you only have two camera bodies, you'd want a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200 to shoot the event. For me, I shoot in a studio, so I can shoot with whatever I want whenever. So it's really easy for me to just grab an 85 and just use that. And if I want to switch to something else, I could do that on my own, like at my own pace and my own leisure. But if you're shooting an event, maybe you have to use a 2470. Yeah, it's not going to give you the best quality compared to a prime, but it still looks good. It still does the job. So let's see. But I do get where you're coming from. And I do also agree with the 85 1.8 from Sony. It is like stupid, stupid sharp lens for not a lot of money. Let's see. Hussein says, do you have a Patreon account? Workshops from San Diego, by the way. I don't have a Patreon account at this point. I do workshops, and you're going to hear more about workshops that I'm going to be doing throughout the year. A lot of them that I'm doing right now are in the New York and New Jersey area. But I'm actually going to start a mentoring program, which is not going to be through Patreon, but I'm going to start a small group mentoring program pretty soon. And I will be traveling for some workshops in the near future as well. So just keep following me on social, and I'll definitely post more details about that. Let's see. Genete says, I'm a lifestyle photographer. If I see a family taking a selfie, I ask them if I could take it for them. I give them my card. When I give them back their phone, book 5 clients this way. You see what I'm talking about? Like, that is beautiful. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because again, you had the interaction with them, then you gave them that passive marketing, right? Then you gave them that business card and then they called you. Now, if they just found that business card while that selfie was being taken, they probably would just walk right past it. They'd be like, we don't need her. But because you were there and you had that interaction and they were like thankful that you took that photo for them, you have more of an opportunity that they'll actually reach out to you and call you for services. And I'm glad that you're seeing that. That's killer. Call Me Vinny says, yeah, I'm still here. Laugh Out Loud from Miami, by the way. We'll see you at ABC Camera. Awesome. I look forward to seeing you there. Rick was asking which 85 does Nick Foman have? So they're having a little conversation there. That's cool. Call Me Vinny says, thank you very much for the great advice. Wrote it down and we'll be on it. Very cool. Let's see. Randy Text 25 says, how do you stop taking photos for free for friends and family and actually get someone to pay you to take photos? That is a killer question. That's like you're getting to the meat of this question here. So how do you stop taking photos for free for friends? You just stop doing it. When I started out, I photographed any and everyone that I could possibly photograph, because I needed to test stuff out, right? I needed to figure out what my style was. I needed to get comfortable behind the camera. So any friends and family that I could get to let me photograph them, it was all gravy. But from personal experience, I have found that there's going to be a certain point where your work gets pretty good and your family is going to be like, wow, you're taking some really beautiful pictures. I want you to take some pictures for me. The problem is that most people nowadays don't respect the process of photography. Right? They don't understand the process because they have a cell phone. It's really easy for them to take a picture. They don't understand the fact that it takes time after you've taken a photo to process it, to, make it look good. And so my feeling today is I don't do business with friends and family. I always refer them to other people. I've had friends and family members, like really close friends and family that I've done business with them, and we've had damaged relationships because their expectations were that because we're friends and family that I have to do all of these things for them. And, I'm already going above and beyond because they are friends and family, but their expectation is like even far beyond that. And it's like, I can't do that. I don't want to lose friends. I don't want to lose family over something silly like that. So I would say, how do you stop doing it? When you understand the fact that your relationships with your family and your friends is more important than anything, more important than making a dollar, you'll learn not to do business with them and let them do business with somebody else. So that would be my best advice for you. And just start to look to find other people that are not friends and family, going to meetup groups and things of that nature. Definitely watch my videos as well, because I talk a lot about this on my Money Monday episodes. So watch those as well. And, hopefully that helps. Let's see. Arvin says, your thoughts on Pratik's retouching course. The one that he has for RGG EDU, I'm actually getting ready to do I've been working on it. It's like a work in progress. Doing a review that I'll post up on F-Stoppers pretty soon. But up to this point, I could tell you it is by far like the best tutorial that I found on retouching. So if you want to learn how to retouch and you want to do like quality work, I would tell you RGG EDU. Check out Pratik's tutorial because it's one of the best ones that I found to date. And for, I think it's $100. I mean, that's crazy, crazy affordable. So no doubt about it. Like I would tell you, that would be a great resource for you. Danny K says, what is your sweet spot f-stop for outdoor portraits? I don't know that I have a sweet spot per se. It depends. Like, it depends on the situation. It depends where we're shooting. I would say my range is anywhere from maybe like an f 2.2 to maybe a f8. But it just depends on where I'm shooting. It depends on the person. There's not really per se a sweet spot. I approach every person and every lighting scenario and every location differently. But usually it's somewhere in that ballpark. Let's see. Rick says he's talking to Nicholas. That's cool. Sonia says, love chambers. I attend about 5 different ones. Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce thing is killer. You know, I wish I could attend 5. Um, I'm sure you're getting a lot of benefit out of that too. If you can be a member of multiple chambers in your local area, that's awesome. Sean says, laugh out loud. Yes, mix it up with the lighting. Very true. Fantasy Fitness says, question, do you feel like frequency separation is overused? What do you feel is the best method for skin retouch? Um, I'm not going to say that it's overused. I'm going to say that people are relying on it too much in situations where they shouldn't use it. So what do I mean by that? Which, by the way, not to plug this video, but I am going to plug it because there's a whole process in my mind that people are just not paying attention to when it comes to shooting portraits. I did a video called Photographing Skin. I would say watch Photographing Skin so that you can understand kind of the background behind this. But when it comes to frequency separation, I'm seeing people that are trying to use it to basically take a portrait that is not good to begin with, that's not in focus, that's not an interesting expression, that's not a good location, that has terrible light, and then applying this technique and applying other techniques to try to polish a turd, right? To try to polish a photo that doesn't really look good to begin with. So those are the times when I look at it and I'm like, yeah, but you spent all this time doing whatever retouching, whether it was frequency separation or anything else. It just wasn't a good photo to begin with. So, you know, the key is to make sure that your eye is being kind of disciplined to see what a good photo is, so that when you use frequency separation, you're going to notice that if you light it correctly, you really don't have to use it as much, if at all, right? There might be certain faces with certain makeup and color where you're going to have to use it, but you know, I'm seeing it used for like really bad portraits, and it's like the issue is not frequency separation. The issue is the taste and what they thought was a good picture. So that should always be refined. You know, even for me, like I look back on my pictures from 6 months ago, and I'm like, ew, you know, I can't. Oh, that's not my style, right? So you should always be looking back at your photos, and you should always be, you know, kind of redefining your taste and pushing to get better. Um, as far as what is the best method for skin retouching, I don't think there's a best method. I think every face is different, every situation is different. Frequency separation is something you can use. You could totally do like a healing brush or clone stamp tool on a blank layer, and that oftentimes gets the job done. So it just depends. You know, there's not really a best method. Every situation, every face is different. The key is to make sure that you capture the detail in camera. And again, all of this, watch Photographing Skin, and it'll answer the question in a lot more detail. Let's see. D. LeVar says, thanks for the great content. You and Manny are a breath of fresh air on YouTube. Follow me on the gram. It would make my day to get some critique from you on my portraits. Instagram, ASAP Beastie. You know, speaking of, I might actually do a live stream critique now that I know that this live stream thing is working. I will likely end up doing a critique pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. I'll post on probably in my group on Facebook first and foremost to get people to submit images. It's going to be a lot easier for me to do that, and yeah, and then I also do private critiques as well. So if you're interested in that type of thing, I do one-on-one 1-hour sessions through Skype where I go through your portfolio. I talk to you about, you know, we talk about your goals in photography, and then I kind of go through it a little bit more in depth. The thing with critiques is it takes time, right? It takes quite a bit of time. I can't just look at the photo and be like, I love it, or no, that's a crappy photo, because it doesn't help you either way. Even if I look at the photo and I say, wow, I love your photo, it doesn't help you, right? Because maybe I just love the outfit the person was wearing in the photo, or maybe you just happen to capture it in great light. Um, maybe you did a great job with the retouch. You know, it doesn't give you a lot of information. It takes time to really sit down and break down like and critique a photograph in a way that you would be able to find useful. So, you know, if that's something you're interested in, definitely reach out to me. But if not, when I do the YouTube live stream for the critiques, that's something to check out. Let's see, Rod9569 says, how do you find out about all these big events for photography? They're usually posted online. You know, they're usually on in different meetups. I've joined a lot of local photography groups on Facebook. They tend to post a lot of these events through there as well. So it's just really plugging into your local photography community, and you'll find out about a lot of these events. Um, let's see. Stefan says Getty Images Calculator is a great resource to get a sense for image licensing pricing. I haven't used it. I definitely have to check that out before I can say anything about it. But yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. That might be one to check out. Tim, how's it going? He says, Happy Money Monday. Yes, Happy Money Monday to you, my friend. Let's see. Bao Win says, what to do when working with a returning client who seems to be late every session? Um, so what do? You charge them more. You know, your time is money. Your time is important. It's just as valuable as anybody else's time. If they are just like chronically late all the time, then, you know, you probably should start charging them for your time, you know, and just bump it up. And if they're like, oh my gosh, why is my rate going up? Well, you know, if you're coming in later and you're not coming in time or on time, that's time that I can't work with somebody else because I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs. So, you know, I've noticed over the course of the last 3 or 4 photo shoots that we've actually, instead of starting and ending at a certain time, it's actually taking longer, whether it be 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever. So have to adjust my pricing accordingly. Let's see. Rod says, so true, bro. Randy says, thank you. So helpful. Thank you. Hover says, oh, he's talking to Stefan. Let's see. George, I'm thinking of quitting my full-time job as a full-time marketer and get into the photography business. I'm worried, but I want to risk it. What's your first and most important advice? Man, that's tough. So first, let me say this before I answer the question. So, congrats. You know, that's definitely something that's really exciting. Don't underestimate what it's going to take to be successful as an entrepreneur in photography. That would probably be the most important advice. Don't underestimate what it's going to take to be successful. Um, Everything that you think you're going to have to do today to be successful in photography, multiply that by like 10, and that's the reality of what it's probably going to take for you to like reach any type of success doing this as a full-time gig. I would tell you read the 10x rule by Grant Cardone. Read that book before you quit your full-time job because it's going to help to set your mind, your framework for what to expect when you go out on your own. I think as long as your mindset is strong and it's accurate for what you're going to expect, I think that you'll do just fine. So that's probably the most important advice that I would give you. But there's a lot. Dave Sincere says, love this live chat. Thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. Which, by the way, I meant to say this earlier. It's like an hour and 7 minutes into the chat. But if you guys are enjoying this, please, 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 I would love you guys forever. Share this video on your social media. Share it on Instagram. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Twitter. And just use hashtag Money Monday. You know, tag me. That would be fantastic if you guys can share this. You know, maybe you're watching this and you don't have a question, but you know, sometimes me answering somebody else's question can like get things spurred. And so the more people that are watching the live stream, the more interaction we can have and the more questions I can answer. And if I see that these are actually going to like impact and help a lot of people, I'll probably do them like once a week. I mean, even if I'm traveling, I should be able to do like a YouTube live every week. So I'm glad you're loving it. Thank you. Let's see. Hammy says, please keep live stream online at least for one day. Hopefully it's going to be longer. I'm hopefully recording this on OBS Studio and it will be uploaded, so it'll still be there. Let's see. Genete says, what goes into a photo critique? You know, when I do photo critiques, it's a little bit different. I look at everything. So we talk about what your goals are with your photography, who you're trying to approach. Because obviously, if you're just doing it for fun, it's a different critique than if you're trying to do it for a business and trying to, you know, market yourself to different people. Or if you're doing it for competition, It's very different to get a critique when you're trying to submit to a competition than it is when you're trying to do it for business. You know, there's a lot of images that I have that I've been paid handsomely for. My clients love it, but I'll enter those same photos in a competition and they don't do well, right? You get a totally different critique. So it's very customized and specific to you and what your goals are in photography. Good old Minolta for life. He says loser Lanier needs to give that man with cancer a refund. Yeah, so Minolta for life is like one of my trolls on my YouTube channel. You know, I don't know, man. That's sad. That's really, really sad. Jason's a really, really good person. You know, good friend of mine. Um, you know, over the years, because he shoots Sony, he's like developed a lot of just haters and trolls and stuff like that. You know, Jason's a really good dude, and you know, the troll stuff. It's sometimes it's funny, but you know, at times it gets kind of old. I would tell you, Minolta for life, just dude, just move on with it, man. There's so much life to live. You know, being positive and just trolling people is a waste of your time. Call me Vinny says, let's see, boom, boom, boom. Do you have clients sign a release form? If so, how did you structure it? Yeah, definitely. They have to sign a release form. I have to be able to use these images. You know, if they are not allowing me to use the images, then they need to pay for that. So they definitely sign a release form. How do they structure it? Talk to your local lawyers that handle IP, and they'll be able to tell you kind of like how to structure that, and they'll write it out for you. Hopefully that helps. Val says, thank you. You're very welcome. Kevin says, I visited the booth at Shutterfest on one, the standalone editing program. Have you used it? And if so, is it worth it? Jersey boy, by the way, in the Boston area. I've used On One software. I don't know about a standalone editing program. Like, I use Photoshop for everything. Is what I'm comfortable with. I would say try it out. And if you feel like you can, you know, produce quality work, use it. You know, I'm not one to say that you can only use one type of program. I just know for me, I've used various products over the years, and there's never like a standalone where I could just do everything. Even as much as I use Capture One, I still use Lightroom very often. So, you know, it's all just tools, man. It's like a toolbox. You know, there's probably like a favorite tool that you have in your toolbox that you use all the time, but you also have other stuff in the toolbox that when the situation calls for it, you reach for that. So good question. Dave says, how long would you say it took you to become proficient at retouching? And what would you recommend someone to reach that level? I would say to be proficient, it probably took me almost 2 years. And I would even say even to this day, I don't know that I'm proficient even today. You know, it's always like a constantly evolving thing. You know, I would tell people it takes a lot of time to become a really good retoucher. You know, and it's time that you're going to spend where you're not spending it on marketing, you're not spending it on becoming a better photographer. You know, it's going to eat into other things. So what I've started to learn is that it's good to learn how to retouch, but it's also good to spend your time in areas that are going to yield you more income, right? So if I know it's going to take me 2 hours to edit a photo or even 1 hour to edit a photo, if I have the time, I'll do it. But I also outsource. So if I see, for example, that it's going to take me, let's say the client wants 15 images, right? Because we did 7 or 8 different looks. Well, that's going to take me a long time. Like that's going to take me a very long time to edit those photos to where I could go ahead, I could charge a little bit more for my session, send it to a retoucher, have them take care of it. While they're working on the retouch, I'm still out there marketing. I'm still out there either shooting, doing something else that makes me money. So you're not required, and this is what I mean to say, you're not required to be a great retoucher if you're a photographer, right? It'd be great if you could, and if you can manage the two, great. If you're doing it as a hobby, great. But I will tell you that there's going to be a certain point that you're going to hit in your career if you're approaching this as a business, to where it's going to make more sense for you to do some retouching and then outsource some retouching so that you have more time to make more money. So good question. Minolta for life. I'm not even going to read it. We're going to keep moving. uh, Actually, no, let's read it. He says phony cameras can't photograph with backlight without getting banding problems. Yeah, I photograph all the time in backlight. I've got no issues with banding problems. Um, you know, I think it's so funny all the people that want to troll people that shoot Sony and they want to troll the images. You know, people are so worried about like the technical stuff. You know, they're worried about like, oh well, so and so, such and such website says that this camera has a problem or this lens has a problem, and it's this really obscure problem. It's like, dude, go out and shoot. You know, go out and shoot stuff. Like guaranteed, 99% of the time, maybe even higher, you're never going to run into some of these issues that these people that are testing the cameras run into. Like that's all that they do is they want to find stuff that's wrong with the camera. Meanwhile, for me as a professional, I want to make money. Like I want to go out and shoot and work with clients and like provide for my family. I don't care if my camera on this one, random thing does this like really silly thing. Like they'll fix it if it's a problem, right? And I would know that as soon as I take it out of the package. And I do photo shoots, multiple times throughout the week. So if it runs into an issue, then I'm like, okay, that's a problem. Send it in for repair or return it, right? Move on with life. Like for me to take time to sit and bash and like talk crap about cameras and all that kind of stuff, ain't nobody got time for that, man. There's money to be made. This is Money Monday. All right, carrying on here. Val says, I'm currently using A7R2 and a 5D4 with my sessions. I can tether wirelessly with a 5D4. Is there a way to tether wirelessly with the A7R2? I don't think so, but potentially you might be able to use one of those wireless SD cards. That's probably the only way I could think of. I don't do it that way. Um, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you're talking, if you're shooting a raw photo on an A7R2, that's like 85 megs. Trying to transfer that through Wi-Fi, that's brutal. I use tether cables to be able to do that. Not 100% sure. Never really looked into it. Craig says, please do one every week. I will. If we get good amount of traffic, good views, good engagement on these live streams, I will happily do one a week. I will definitely do that. Make sure you're sharing it, and that will help quite a bit. Let's see. George says, thank you so much for the advice. I love your content so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for the support. Let's see. Minolta for life again with the trolling says phony cameras have grips for girls, so real men don't use phony cameras. I think I'm a real man, and I use a Sony camera. And what's wrong with girls using Sony cameras, right? Why you got to be all sexist for, right? Girls can take really great photos too. Eager Snake, Miguel, how are you doing? Doing well. Greetings from Argentina. Let me ask you, I do weddings and I just added astrophotography into my offerings. I don't really know how to promote it. Any tips? So you're asking for tips for marketing astrophotography. I think that's going to be tough if that's what you're asking. How you promote it would just be posting it on social media, tagging people that might be interested in buying that type of thing. Astrophotography is tough. I mean, I would imagine if I try to sell something like that, it would probably be as like prints or artwork. And so you would just have to go down the road of trying to find entities or places or people that would be interested in paying for that type of thing. Yeah, that could be a tough one. Promoting it definitely through social media is going to be the way to go, though. So let's see. Tim says, you may have already discussed this, but how do you handle all of social media, Instagram, Vero, Snapchat, Facebook? What's the most effective? So what I tend to do is I block out hours of a day to post on social media. So you'll see in the mornings especially, I usually take an hour and just post everything on every group, on every social media channel that is relevant for me. And then usually in the evening, I do the same thing. So it might not be a full hour in the evening. It might be 30 minutes. It might be, before I go to bed or something like that. But you always want to be active on social media, and it has to be like a fairly frequent thing. As far as what's the most effective, it's all effective. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Facebook is effective, Instagram is effective. They're effective in different ways. For me personally, I've had the most benefit from Instagram. I've actually had big companies and big brands that have reached out to me, and they didn't do it through Facebook, they did it through Instagram. So for me, I would say that it's probably the more important one for me, but that's not to say that Facebook is not important, because I've had business that has come from that as well. So it's not an eggs in one basket type of thing. It's a multi faceted approach that you have to take to be successful. So let's see. Muzafar says thoughts on the future of DSLR. Um, yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like DSLRs are moving in the same direction as film cameras were in the past. I think they're going to be marginalized in the next 5 to 10 years, to the point to where you're not going to see it as much anymore. Unless there's some kind of drastic shift in the technology, I don't see how DSLRs can compete with mirrorless cameras. The tech is just so much more advanced on a mirrorless camera. Um, I don't know. I mean, to me, I haven't used a DSLR now in 4 years, and I've been producing some of the best work that I've ever been able to produce. I haven't had a single need to go back to shooting with a DSLR. And I would imagine as more people start to use mirrorless cameras, whether they be from Sony or Panasonic or Fuji or from whatever brand that they like, they're going to see the benefits, and they're going to be like, why am I shooting DSLR anymore? It doesn't make any sense. So, I think the future of DSLR doesn't look good at this point, unless there's some major shift, unless the big DSLR makers that are out there actually sit down and say, how can we compete with some of this tech, and start putting that technology and putting that research and development into making some stuff that actually is competitive. It shouldn't be. And this is one of the reasons why I went away from DSLR. I shouldn't have to wait 3 years, 4 years for the next new iteration to come out for my current camera body. And then when it comes out, it's only marginally better than the prior year's version, because it could be 8 years at that point before the next version comes out that actually offers something that I would want. Meanwhile, you have companies like Sony and companies like Panasonic and companies like Olympus and Fuji that are in mirrorless, that are constantly pushing to add new technology, add new features. DSLR future is kind of bleak unless somebody just wakes them up. Let's see, App 129 Photography. How do you feel about free photo shoots to build portfolio? I think they're cool. I don't ever let people know that they're free photo shoots, right? So in terms of the public, you could go out, you could do as many free photo shoots as you want. When you post those images, please don't say, hey, here's the photos from my free photo shoot from last week. Don't do that, right? So my feeling is, if it helps you to build a portfolio, fantastic. I did that in the beginning, but don't ever mention that it was free, and you'll have much better success. Let's see. Kevin says, thank you for your time and generosity. The day I met you 2 years ago, I knew I'd follow you. Stay who you are. I appreciate you a great deal. Thank you so much for the support. Let's see. Going through the comments here. Here we go. Irk says, Minolta for life is not worth your comments, bro. Yeah, I'm done with his comments. I've answered enough of his stuff. James Freeman, do you ever have issues with oversized angled shoulders when shooting with an 85? I don't know. Sometimes you do run into that where the shoulders look like super broad. So you just have to be aware of it when you're shooting with an 85. And that's why I take a lot of shots during my sessions, and I tend to get people moving fairly often, so that if I have one shot where it looks like kind of odd, I have like hundreds more shots where hopefully it looks correct. Joe says, you're definitely one of my favorites. So yes, keep live streaming. Follow David Osler, and he loves live streaming. They're a lot of fun. You have so much to offer. So yes, I'm down for Monday live streaming. Awesome. Thank you. Photo Me Ike, how's it going? I see you out there. Keep putting out the good work. Let's see. Spec Productions. It takes a class act to turn a troll comment into worthy info for everyone. Great job with this presentation, Jim from north of LA. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of funny. A lot of people tend to like, I don't know, they don't like trolls. Um, this Minolta for Life guy, he'll tell you, I'm sure, like he comments on my stuff and I comment back. Like we have dialogue back and forth, even though I know he's trolling me. Just because he's trolling, I mean, if you're going to be a dick, then be a dick. That's on you. But at that point, once it comes to me, it's up to me to kind of figure out how I want to react to that. And so I have fun with it, man. My gas tank, like my creative gas tank is fueled by trolls. So that's fine. Troll on. Keep trolling. That's what I always say. I appreciate that you appreciated the uh, kind of like Rick rolling it into some useful information. Um, let's see. Da, 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 da. Here we go. So, oh, that's another funny one. So, Minolta for Life, he says, "Oh snap, photo me Ike, a real photographer is here. Miguel, he uses Nikon. You better run for the hills." I'm running, man. I am totally running, specifically because of the Nikon camera. Um, let's see. Soul Glow, DJ for social media management. Try Hootsuite or later. They might help. Yeah, you could definitely use. There's a lot of programs out there that you can kind of manage your social media. I have subscribed to their services in the past, and they're okay. Um, every time I use it, though, I just end up going back to social media and just doing it myself. But it is kind of cool that you can schedule, especially for Facebook, you can schedule posts for the week. So, like, if you have your content already laid out, let's say on a Saturday or Sunday, you could have the rest of the week's posts already scheduled in a program like that. So that's kind of cool. My stuff is very like spur of the moment, just like this live stream. I woke up this morning and I'm like, I'm going to record a Money Monday episode in the studio. And I was like, but what if instead I do a live stream? And so that's why I'm here now. So if you're like me and you come up with content and you're deciding what to post up like the day of, then sometimes these, social media management things don't really work out as well. But that Hootsuite or Hoot, whatever you call it, is really good. J2K, I took your advice on working with brands for free gigs to open opportunities. Behold, a men's fashion line just reached out to me and we're doing a collaboration. Thanks, Portrait Master. Thank you. Thank you. Dude, that's exciting, man. Congrats. Dude, like I said, that's the key. Nobody has to know that you're working for free, right? If you get some really fantastic images out of a shoot that you can roll into an opportunity to get paid by another fashion brand, good on you. Fantastic. Let's see. Ba-ba-ba-bum. For some reason, every time I touch on the top chat, it like goes crazy here. Photo Me Ike says, "I'm only here because Notification Squad." That's what I'm talking about. Welcome. Dave Sincere says, "How do you feel about crop sensor cameras being used for pro gigs? A6300, A6500 from Sony. I'm using them now for my tutorials to show people that you don't have to have really expensive full frame cameras to produce professional work. I think it's totally fine using them for pro gigs. I think the challenge that you may run into with those two cameras is you are going to have to carry some batteries with you. But in terms of and if you're shooting in low light, that could be an issue as well. But, I think they are able to produce quality images. And you'll see that if you go on my Instagram, I posted some pictures and there's more that's coming. And actually, I think this week on Adorama TV, the episode that I recorded was with the A6500. So you'll get an idea. You could totally do pro gigs with it. George says, "Is there a way to block this guy from writing nonsense?" No, I'm not going to block him. He could say whatever he wants to say. I'm just going to ignore him from here on out. Let's see. Photo Me Ike says, "Oh, and Miguel's cool. Thank you. Appreciate that." Dave Sincere says, "That's great news for J2K." Let's see. Harsh Deep says, Whenever I head to a shoot, I manage everything fine, but I hesitate when my subject asks me to pose." Don't hesitate. Make it up, right? Make it up. Look at great photos. Note how they pose. Sometimes it's really good to have like different pictures saved on your phone. So you could say, "Hey, check out this photo. Can you do a pose like this?" and get them to recreate a pose. But when that doesn't work, what works really well for me is just make it up. Tell them, "Hey, pose like this, move like this. That looks great." Always encouraging them, even if their pose looks awkward or doesn't look right. Always let them know that they're doing a great job. And you'll notice that the poses start to get a little more loose, they get more natural, and you'll start to get great shots. So just make it up. Rick says, eagerly awaiting the photo critique. Awesome. It's coming soon. Body Snatcher. Hi, Miguel. Love your work. You actually introduced me into Nick Color before Google took it over. Any more Adorama shows soon? I'm waiting for dates. Actually, I'm supposed to be doing one a month with them. And I don't know. They haven't reached out to me to give me my next few dates. So hopefully I'll have those soon. Photo Miike says, the only thing a DSLR needs is an EVF to compete with mirrorless, but it's not like DSLR is a company or anything, so it's highly unlikely. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. I don't know that you can have an electronic viewfinder with a mirror box. You know, that essentially would turn that DSLR into a mirrorless camera. So if it was capable to do, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's some smart people out there. They could probably make something like that happen. But, you know, there's so many people that are just like, you know, spitting on EVFs without having used them that I don't know. Like if they got that, I think that would stem or that would start to like open up a lot of the innovation that mirrorless has seen, but I don't think it's possible. Let's see. Hover says, good stuff, Miguel. Where would I find details about consultations? Send me an email through miguelquiles.com if you're interested in any type of consultations, photo critiques, things of that nature. Let me know what you're looking for, and I will cover that. Charles Hamilton, he says, you mentioned RGG EDU, retouching beauty and portraits by Pratik. The tutorials you were referring to, yes, it was. Thank you for taking the time to do this. My pleasure. Sonia, you go, Miguel. Love it. Let's see. DMax says, Miguel, where are you located? I'm in New Jersey. Body Snatcher says, hey, will you do some photo critiques here? I will. I'll post up later on Facebook, Improve Your Photography in that group, so you can submit your photos through there. Kevin says, can you elaborate on that advice about working with brands? Which advice? Let me know. I said a lot of stuff. Remind me in the comments. Let's see. Rick says, I have been using the 6000 as a second camera for 2 years now. No client has ever said not enough pixels in that shot. Dude, 24 megapixels is a lot. Like I've printed huge 8 foot long, 4 foot high prints off of a 24 megapixel photo, and they look awesome. I had billboards in Florida, 24 megapixels. That's more than enough resolution. It's crazy. Sean says, trolls are the best. I only read comments for the LOLs. You need to find a way to bottle that shit and sell it. Yeah, man. I'm the same way. Like trolls don't really bother me that much. Like there's some days where it gets really annoying. It bothers me when they're being like rude. Like this troll that's in the chat right now, saying like calling people losers and just being like, you know, personal attacks and stuff like that for no reason. Like I don't know. Like that's kind of annoying to me, but whatever. Trolls don't really bug me that much. I move on. Let's see. Bart says Sony had EVF with a translucent mirror DSLR. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually, that is true. I guess it is possible. But the thing is, I mean, so it's a translucent mirror, right? So in theory, it's still kind of mirrorless because the mirror is there, but it's translucent. So the image, the light is still going like directly through this like clear mirror and hitting the sensor, as opposed to the mirror popping up and getting out of the way to expose the sensor. The tech is different. It's like the sensor can see through the translucent mirror, as opposed to a DSLR, the sensor can't see through the back of a mirror. The mirror has to pop up to expose the sensor for the light to hit it. So yes and no. I don't know. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Let's see. Call me Vinny says, sorry for all the questions. Laugh out loud. Don't be sorry. That's why I'm here. But I mostly shoot outdoors in Miami, but want to grow my studio work. Should I take your studio workshop to work on the studio side or the outdoor shoot to learn more? If you want to learn more about shooting in studio, take the studio workshop, 100%. DMAC, your travel plans. Next week, I'm going to be in North Carolina for a family/business visit. Early May, I'm going to be in California for the Sony condo trip. Late May, I believe it's the 24th and 25th, I'll be at the ABC store doing the 2-day workshop there. After that, I'm not sure. So I'm still working on those dates. MiguelQuiles.com/workshops. If I can get GoDaddy to fix my website, all of the dates and times and stuff will be on there. Let's see. I'm going to take a few more questions because I'm going a little long today, but let's see. Joe says, did a shoot with the Sony A9 and my buddy had his Nikon. He is now switching. Yeah, dude, that's not even fair, man. Unless they're shooting with like a Nikon D5 or something, that's not even like a fair fight, man. The A9 is a monster. Kevin says, laugh out loud. J2K took your advice on working with brands for free gigs to open opportunities. Behold the men's fashion line. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to working with brands, like it's not even just working with brands. If you take a test shoot or a free photo shoot and you could roll that into like any opportunity. It doesn't have to be just working with brands. It could be working with a local fashion boutique. It could be working with, more models. It could be like anything. You can roll. And the idea is every shoot that you do, you could hopefully roll it into some other opportunity to be able to make more money. So with that being said, I think that my live stream is hitting its end right now. So if it's still recording, great. If not, just wanted to say thank you guys for joining me on the live stream today, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for joining me.